In a noisy classroom, filled with chatter and laughter, there sat a 13-year-old girl at the very back. Her name was Emily. She didn't talk much. She wore secondhand clothes. She kept her head down and her voice quiet. While others laughed in circles, Emily sat alone, sketching quiet little dreams onto the edge of her notebook. No one noticed her. No one asked her name. She was invisible, but not empty. Inside her lived a dream, one she never spoke aloud. At night, in a cracked little room lit by a flickering candle, Emily worked. Her fingers were rough from sewing. Old cloth scraps covered the floor. She didn't have a sewing machine, just a needle, a thread, and a belief that maybe, just maybe, she could create something that mattered. She stitched not just fabric, but hope, one careful line at a time. One day in the school hallway, she held up a small handmade dress. It was simple, imperfect, and the others, they laughed. Not loudly, but just enough to hurt. She didn't fight. She didn't run. She just stood there, quietly holding her creation, like it still mattered, even if no one else thought it did. The first person who truly saw her wasn't a teacher, wasn't a student. It was Mr. James, the school bus driver. Every morning he smiled as she stepped on the bus. "Morning, little designer," he'd say. And one day, Emily shyly held out a scarf she had stitched herself. Her hands were shaking. Mr. James didn't laugh. He didn't hesitate. He took the scarf with both hands, looked at it like it was priceless, and said, "This is beautiful." For the first time, someone didn't just see her work. He saw her. Encouraged, Emily kept going. She started offering her handmade baby clothes to neighbors. One kind woman handed her a few coins. Another smiled and said, "This is lovely." And for the first time in her life, Emily smiled back. It wasn't about the money. It was about being seen. Finally, her work had value. Years passed. The girl who once sewed under candlelight now had a tiny workshop of her own, still small, still quiet, but now filled with folded fabric, hand-drawn sketches, and her calm, steady hands. She wasn't chasing fame. She was building a dream, slow and real. A dream stitched with silence and strength. One day, Emily held her first public showcase. Not in a fancy hall, not with flashing lights, just a room with a banner she painted herself. Thread of Hope. She stood next to her clothes. No makeup, no spotlight, just a simple dress, and a quiet kind of pride. And this time, people clapped, not for fashion, but for courage. In the front row sat Mr. James, older now, eyes a little wetter, shoulders a little lower, but that same warm smile still shining. Emily stepped off the stage, walked up to him, and hugged him like family. She held the scarf he once wore, the first one she ever made, and whispered, "You didn't just wear it. You carried my dream when no one else did." Later that night, she gave him a gift, a beautifully stitched jacket. Inside the collar was a small label, "For Mr. James, the first one who believed." He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. The way he looked at her said everything. And long after the claps faded, after the lights were turned off, there sat a quiet table. On it, a folded scarf, a needle, a single spool of thread, and a tag that read, "Thread of Hope. No people, no noise, just the legacy of one invisible girl who stitched her way to a dream because one kind man believed she could." So if you're listening now and you feel invisible, if people laugh at your dream, if the world tells you to give up, don't. Because sometimes the smallest stitch becomes the strongest thread, and one kind word can carry someone all the way to their future.